All right, today we're going to be working on lesson 10-4, which is page 605, combining volumes of prisms. You already know how to find the volume of a single prism. Today, what we're going to be doing is taking two prisms and shoving them together and trying to find up the total volume of the whole shape. So you get to decide how you're going to divide up the shape. So for this example here, Ariel is thinking of a three-dimensional figure that is made by combining two rectangular prisms. What is the volume of this three-dimensional figure? Solve this problem any way you choose. You have to decide which shape is going to be which. And we're going to be looking at congruent sides here, which is something that was taught in the lower grades. So equal sides, so you're going to have an awareness of that. So let's say if I take this box right here, chop it off, and I'm going to call that box A, and then I'm going to say box A is sitting on box B. So for box A, I'm going to do my length, my width, and my height, and I'm going to do the same thing for box B, my length, my width, and my height. So for box A, what is the length? Now, typically we're looking at, let me change my color here. Typically we're looking at this line right here, and there's no number on that. So now I'm going to have to look for what that line segment equals. And I'm going to look for congruent or equal lines that are occurring in that shape. We know that this length right here is going to be the same value as the opposite parallel side, which will be the same value as the opposite parallel side. So my length is 4. My width, which is this, this depth here, we need to figure that out. So I know that the width is going to be congruent or equal to the opposite side, which is also equal to the opposite side. So you're going to have to hunt around on the shape. And then my height, be careful here, this whole thing is 7, but I only want this little piece here. So I look to the opposite side and the opposite side, and I know it's a 5. So for shape A, I'm going to be doing 5 times 2, or 4 times 2, which is 8, times 5 is 40. So I have 40 centimeters cubed for shape A. Now going over to shape B, my length is actually written there, so I don't have to go searching for it. For shape B, or volume of B, and this would be volume of A. For volume of B, my length, volume B, my length is going to be 4. My width is 6. That's already written for you too. Now I got to figure out this tiny little height here. My opposite side is congruent, opposite side congruent, so it's 2. So for my volume B, I'm going to have 4 times 6 is 24, times 2 is 48. So my volume B is 48 centimeters cubed, and when I add them together, I'm going to add A was 40, B was 48. So combined, I have 88 centimeters cubed. So your job is going to be to decide how you're going to divide the shape up, and you're going to have to look for those congruent or equal opposite sides to find out your measurements. So that's where it gets a little tricky there. The opposite side thing, the congruent sides. So remember, in our regular shapes, in our three-dimensional figures here, the opposite sides are equivalent. If you remember that, you'll be fine. And remember, there's going to be a lot of extra numbers all over that shape. We didn't use a ton of those numbers we didn't even use. So don't get tricked by that. How do you separate the solid into simple rectangular prisms? Write the dimensions of each prism. So we already did that. So we're going to move on to the next page. And the video for today, the shape and size of a storage building are shown in the figure. The building supervisor wants to find the volume to determine how much storage space is available. What is the volume of the building? Again, you're going to have to decide how to divide it up. And you can see they decided to divide it right here. So they decided B is on the bottom, A is on that top little box, and they found the volume of both prisms, and then they added it together. So again, you have to look at opposite sides. So when we're looking at this shape up here, We're looking at A. We do not have a length there. So opposite side, no number there. Opposite side, that's where they got the 4 from, in case you're wondering. And that's where that 4 comes from. Or that's where they get that, they have that 4 from. So they're showing you in green here which numbers are being used, and in red which numbers are being used. And there's some numbers that are not being used, so don't get tricked. Like we don't use that 12 anywhere, and we don't use the 6 anywhere. So don't get tricked. You're going to have some extra numbers that you don't need in your diagram. That's where kids make errors. They get tricked up on the extra numbers. What is another way to divide it? So we could also divide this shape. Instead of one small box sitting on top of a box, we could say, like a cereal box, we could call this shape A, and then this other box here, shape B. And you'll still get the same answer in the end. So in that case, we could say A is, if we decided to divide it up like that way instead, like a giant rectangle, and then the other shape pushed to the front, then we would have, for shape A, the new A, we would say our length is 4. I'm looking for the measurement of this tiny little piece right here. I look to the opposite side, look to the opposite side. So we have 4. And my width is going to be the thickness of it, which I know is that because it's the same as the opposite sides. And the height for this one, I will use the 12. And then for shape B here, I want this tiny little piece here. I'm looking at the opposite side and the opposite side. 6 times 9 times, what is that, a 7 under there? Can't even, times 7. And when I multiply all those out, I'll still have the same answer in the end. So it doesn't matter how you divide it as long as you get the right answer at the end. You just make it into 2 prisms. That's our job today. So you're only going to see a couple problems on the, here we are again, having trouble with this silly thing. A couple problems on the next page. Don't get scared because there's 5,000 little numbers on there. For number 1, they divide it for you. What is the length, width, and height of prism A and the length, width, and height of prism B? And so A, the length is this tiny piece here, which is not labeled. Remember, the entire length of the shape is labeled, but not the tiny piece. So we need to look at an opposite side to figure that one out. So we're going to look there, opposite, opposite. So we have 4 length. Width, we can't see the width because it's hidden there for our shape A, but we know it's the same as this. It's the same thickness here, or we can actually go up all the way to the top here. So it's 3, and the height is 12. And for shape B, the little box at the front, we don't know what that little tiny space is. When we look on opposite sides, there we see it there, 2 times the width times the height. So 4 times 3 times 12, and 2 times 3 times 5. So we had to write out the formula that we had to do for 1. And then for 2, what's another way you can separate them? So just another way you could separate this is you could chop it off here. So you could say A is the top piece right here, and B would be the bottom box there. And what are the dimensions for those? Let me erase my scribbles so I can read it. So if I chop it off here, and I say the top box A is going to be 4 times, looking at opposite sides here because I don't know what that measures, 4 times 3, and it's times 7. That would be A. And the volume of B would be this tiny, oh no, it's a big one here. Okay, 6 times 3 times 5. So that's how we would, if we wanted to divide it the other way. And you can do it either way unless they tell you. So you can see on the next problem 3, you get to decide how you're going to divide it. Let me change my color here. Let me pick something bright. So if I decide to have one box laying on top of another box, I'm going to call this top part A and the skinny little bottom guy B. And I'm going to need to figure out the volume for A. I want length, so I need that little piece right there. I'm looking at opposite sides. There we go, 5 times width is 7 times height. It's not 3 because I chopped it off there. Or it's not 8, sorry, because I can't read my over. There we go. Get that, erase that there. It's not 8 because remember we chopped it. So we're looking for this line right here. So we want a height. We want this part of it. So it's less than 8. And opposite side, that'll be 6. 5 times 7 times 6. And for the bottom, for B, the length is 15. The width is 7. Those are clearly stated for you. And you need to find the height, this tiny little piece here. And you can always take what you had here, which was 6, and subtract 8 from 6 to get 2. You could always do some math that way, or you can look for opposite sides. And you can see there's a 2-way over there. And you can do this on the calculator, 5 times 7 times 6, and 15 times 7 times 2. So 15 times 7 times 2, when you multiply that out, 15 times 2 is 30, 30 times 7, 210, and 5 times 7 times 6, same thing, 210. And 210 plus 210 is a total of 420 inches cubed. So that's number 3. For number 4, again, I'm going to divide it like that. I don't know, A and B. And I'm going to say A is, I'm looking for this length here. Let's look at the opposite sides labeled. Width, not labeled, but opposite sides labeled. And the height, that's labeled. And B, length, width, height. So 5 times 8 is 40, and 40 times 5 is 200. 7 times 8 is 56, and 56 times 2 is 112. Add those together. 200 plus 200 plus 112 equals 312 centimeters cubed. Remember, I need to combine them in the end. So that's what we're doing today. Good luck. Have fun. Have fun with shapes.